Hey everyone, and welcome to today's episode of Cognition Ignition. As I said, I'm going to be going live for at least probably 30 days in a row, uh, maybe even more. And I'm here today. I'm going to have to come up with a lot of different topics to talk about. Um, I want to make these interactive. So if you join in and you want to let me know if you have any questions or if you have any comments about what I am talking about in these videos, feel free to let me know. But today I want to talk about when we should start using type, how we can actually use it to make the world better, individuals better, and some of the problems I see just generally in the world that we can use type to kind of explain. Not even just type, actually, psychology too. Um, as a business owner, I spent a lot of my time learning my business. And then when I started hiring employees, I was learning how to interact with employees. And I know a lot of my subscribers on here have asked me about using typology to um, work with your employees and be a better business owner. Uh, when I started using type, it was pre-COVID. What I have realized is that post-COVID, there's a lot of problems, mental problems that people are dealing with that aren't necessarily type related, although you can still use the fundamental principles of type, which are introversion and extroversion, to understand some of the problems. And also, um, when I was pre-COVID using typology, what I was realizing was that many of the problems that come up for people have to do um, with missing some key components to psychological development, which occur early in life. Some of these things are developing virtues, such as a sense of willingness to engage with the outer world, trust in the outer world, competency. And every person who came to me was different. Some of them had what I would do is I would gauge the level of each of these virtues that people would come to me with. A lot of people I noticed did have a will to engage, but didn't have any ability to engage in the ways they needed to, especially in construction, um, or any of the technical skills that you can find yourself in when you're in your 20s. So I was using type a lot to understand where maybe some of these people's genes were never activated to express, because I do think that type has a lot to do with gene expression. Um, that we all have basic genes that allow us to develop a sense of willingness to engage, competency, and all these things. But if we do not get introduced to environments where we can express these genes, they do be suppressed. That's something I've talked about a lot, is suppressing your functions. Um, the functions I do think have a lot to do with our genes, and um, if we are not expressing them throughout our life, then we are not going to be able to use them later on. Um, so when kids would come to me and be 20 years old, I would often try to go through and say, okay, this person is willing, this person has no ability. That's the one thing that was often what came up, was people didn't have the ability to actually work in a rigorous field that has a lot of demand physically and mentally. So I would have to actually, what I would do a lot is encourage people to start working out. That's what I encourage a lot of people to do. I think it's an easier place to start, um, because there you would give people you would be able to help people get a sense what uh, of what it means to achieve something for yourself. Um, because I do think what I was realizing is a lot of people who didn't have these virtues developed, they were looking outwardly in order to get some sense of pride, but there is no real pride if it's not coming from within. So I would actually work with people to understand these virtues a lot more. And I've actually talked about the virtues in Erikson stages, which you can recognize several virtues that need to be developed in order for somebody to begin feeling a sense of self in a positive way. No matter what I think is when you develop virtues, it's a point of self-actualization. And no matter what, you are going to reach a point of self-actualization, and it's either going to be a positive realization or a negative realization. You're either going to say, I do have competency, or I can become competent, or you are going to say, I cannot become competent. You are either going to be willing to engage, or you're not going to be willing to engage. And as a business owner, you have to pay a lot of attention to this with people, because the thing is, generally, we all understand this. All humans understand that these virtues do exist. You can't just listen to what somebody says, because everybody wants to be willing and able to do something. Everybody wants to have competency and be industrious. And anybody can say they can do those things, but it's not necessarily true. As a business owner, you want to understand how these people are functioning, because you'll be able to understand if somebody is sneaking in false information about themselves, and then understand which virtues they've missed out on, because you can understand if it's something that you can help correct or not. So what I kind of want to get into is like, when we should really be using type is at a very early age. We have all this information, and I think that if type becomes more mainstream, you can actually begin teaching parents to help their children in their development. I do think that many of the issues that come up are because of parents who do not think that they can help with their child's development. But also, I think that a lot of things like school actually suppress our development, especially depending on the personality type and cognitive functions that you are using. So I think that if you're in your 20s and you're using type, you can use it to help yourself. But I don't think that it's necessarily going to be as effective as if you're in your 20s and you learn the system to help other people in a way. Because most of the problems that happened in my business were things that I could address within other people, to begin helping them develop the resources, the psychological resources that they really needed. Now, as a parent, I realize that I don't have to wait till my son is 25 years old to make that difference within his life. And I'm hopefully going to be able to help other parents realize this. I've done this in my own friend group and things like this. But as a business owner, I think it's important to realize that not everybody is going to come to you, even if this does become more mainstream. They're not going to come to you with already all these virtues instilled in them, with a high capability of using their functions. So you have to actually work towards doing this. And I think it's almost like a battle between the industries, not our industries, more like our societal regulations in a way. The way that children are taught because of society, versus like businesses, because businesses do need people to come to them with some set of skills. And I do think that the way kids are being raised right now, especially in like through high school and middle school and things, is contradictory to what society needs from individuals who are going to participate and bring themselves to higher levels. So my thing is, for business owners, it's our job to actually instill that into people, even though it kind of sucks. But I do think that if we can instill that within the people we have working with us, then they can do that with their own children. A lot of this is because, I personally want a better future for my son. If he decides to open a business, I want him to have resources within the world that are actually going to help him do that. I think that that's really missing, because we aren't raising people who have the capabilities to use their psychological resources. And I personally think that some of the change, I'm going to actually talk about some of the changes that I think should be made societally, as far as like the length of schooling. I think that kids should probably be working in their teenage years, like we should probably shut down high schools. They're a waste of time. They're dangerous for kids. And they provide no real benefit to children, to be honest with you. Uh, I'm I'm okay with things like middle school because I do think that there has to be a place for people to build a foundation. But even more so, I think that we could influence more local education through like home daycares and homeschooling rather than um, just sending our kids to public education, which everybody knows it doesn't even teach things that make sense these days. Um, and I think as parents that we like as business owners, as parents, we should really be considering, hey, how are we going to raise generations that can actually be productive in society rather than, end up 25 with all these mental health issues. Because, they do exist, but I think that a lot of it exists because of the way we are encouraging development. We are encouraging mental health issues within people. Um, so, you know, the reason I like to talk to business owners is because I do think that societally they make some of the biggest impact along with parents. But I think it all goes hand in hand. We need to create better people. Uh, we need to create higher levels of consciousness and awareness within people. And it should really be starting from a very young age where, kids grow up understanding that they can become confident, that they can have industry, and then learn how to do it. I think this is important. It's like, for me, I've been working. My dad had me working since I was 14 years old. I've talked about that a lot. I actually don't always like talking about how I was raised because I understand many people have even commented, "Oh, I wish I had good parents" and things like that. And the thing is, you can break that cycle. I personally don't think my parents had that great of parents. So I think that they broke that cycle. And I think that because they broke that cycle, I'm going to be a better parent. Um, so how can parents and business owners influence this is really start kids, like educate kids young, like on the real world, not just have them sit in class for 6 hours a day, twiddling their thumbs, getting notes from teachers saying they're not working to their potential when the teachers don't even provide a way to reach their potential. Um, and that would be probably the place to start. For myself, I am going to be homeschooling my son, and I hope to actually uh, create an entire uh, program to teach people how to homeschool their child. And here's the thing: for those of you who don't have kids, this is still important because understanding how people work is essential to your business, really. And if you don't understand like the timeline of what every person goes through before they come to work for you, then you're going to have just generally a lot of issues actually working with people. So if you can understand it from like, where did people come to me with missing links. That's what I say. Like they're missing wiring within their head that they don't know how to actually work and things like that because they've never developed that core sense of I can or I am. They don't understand what potential is. They don't understand how things build up. So I think that, at a young age, we should be teaching people, hey, if you put yourself into an environment, you work in that environment, uh, they will naturally be able to see how they are impacted and what kind of impact they make. They will understand like what extroversion really does for them within their psyche. I think a lot of people think extroversion is always making an impact externally, but extroversion just as much makes an impact internally. Um, and I think that many people are just taught not to engage. I think that's what high school really teaches you, not to engage, to actually be fearful of what will happen if you do engage. I even mean like, kids aren't even allowed to protect themselves if you think about that. I personally, this is another thing is like, you know, when you really think of what life is, it's a battle. Well, it's a war with a lot of battles. And what I think is that when I was in school and I got bullied, my mom would tell me to hit the kid. Um, and the school always wanted to suspend me, um, and they did, but I wouldn't get in trouble because I was engaging with the environment in a way that it was required to be engaged with. Um, and a lot of times the bully wasn't even necessarily always picking on me. They were picking on other people. And what I realized is most men would just sit there and watch. They would watch women get picked on, and things like that. So I really do think that we have to instill a sense of trust that you can engage in young people. Because what happens is if people realize they can engage that physically, then engaging with things like YouTube or starting your own business, it's really nothing. And I'm going to be honest, like for me, starting a business is like nothing. Um, and then because I was able to start businesses, I was able to understand money. So basically, what I'm just trying to show you right here is how I continuously was able to engage. I had so much self-confidence. I still do. What I lack right now is discipline. But I do think that because my parents encouraged me to engage, not even just fighting, by the way. If I wanted to play a sport, they would make sure I at least tried out or at least gave my effort to engage. If I didn't like it, I could quit. But I would be able to put myself into the physical world. And I think no matter your type, that's what you have to do. Carl Jung said it himself. Consciousness streams into us from the extroverted sense perception, from the outside world inward. And I really do think if you have a kid sitting at home for 6 hours, he's going home and doing 5 hours, what real extroversion from the outer world does he really get? That kid is always going to be scared to engage with the outer world without some kind of syllabus or framework that they're working off of. And as somebody who doesn't do that, I notice when people do, and I notice it's the majority of people. And I realize, I wasn't always as confident because I had good parents who would actually, talk to me about the problems that were coming up and telling me, you don't have to listen to teachers because the teachers are stupid. They really are. They're sitting there getting a paycheck, and they don't even really. I talk to teachers; they don't understand what they're teaching kids. It's crazy. And yeah, so as a parent, you can begin to instill that in your child. And as a business owner, you can understand. A lot of people who don't develop these virtues talk about it. They tell you how bad their childhood was. So as a business owner, you can listen and you can say, okay, well, obviously you've never had you've never had the opportunity to see what you're capable of. And then you put people in those situations. It does kind of suck sometimes when you realize some people really have no foundation, because as a business owner, it is hard to work on that. That's why for myself, I'm trying to find a way to help people's development at an earlier age, because there are times when the foundation isn't there to continue helping somebody without really professional help, somebody who can really invest the time into that. But also a lot of things is what you can do, and what I've seen is teaching people to give in. What I talked about, going to jujitsu, they'll learn discipline through that organization. And the rules of that organization. If you can get somebody to do that, sometimes, even if they're pretty far gone, it could actually begin creating the networks in their brain that allow them to develop all these virtues that they do need. Yeah, that's pretty much where I'm at. So we're going to talk. So I talked earlier about gene expression, and really the main thing is that from a young age, instead of sheltering people, we should really be teaching people what real life is. Put them in dangerous positions so that they can become dangerous. I hear people like I said, I have to come up with a lot of topics to do this for 30 days. Even though it's all there, it's just how do I keep these going? But anyway, I've been listening to people like Jordan Peterson, Joe Rogan, Andrew Tate, and all of them. And, everything they're telling people is ways of getting into, is the way of accessing your genes and expressing your genes to the truth is, people really, when people come to me and they have these problems, is they have no sense of self in the highest um, form that it can be. Self confidence and all these things that you can develop. Um, is because when they don't have these things, it's really because they've never been able to express anything that allowed them to feel that or recognize that within themselves. The only reason that I realized, hey, I need some more discipline in my life was because I was so disciplined in my teens. Um, and that discipline carried me through my 20s. Even though I wasn't technically working on it, my discipline was able to transfer from my physical development to my business development. I would still wake up every day, and I was the first person at Home Depot at 6 o'clock in the morning. That was discipline, even though it wasn't the same discipline I was developing earlier in life. And when you hear like Andrew Peterson and Andrew Tate and them telling men like, you have to go do the hard things, they're not wrong. They may be dickheads, but they're not wrong. And the truth is, if you don't see men doing those things, and if men don't speak up and things like that, the world is going to go to crap. It's just kind of the truth. And type, it's not really going to matter your type, actually, because there's going to be a certain way that people have to be, regardless of their type. It's already happened. Like, you have to go to school, you have to get the same education, where I think, be better than everyone. I'm not going to lie. You can actually, most people are scared to say it, but you can, like I said, it's a war. You really have to like try to be better than most people. Because unless you have a good team, that's what it is. It's a competition. And I think that the one thing I don't like about type is it makes it seem like everybody should be getting along. And I think I tried to use it that way for a while, and I don't necessarily think that's true. I think that if anything, you use type to understand how you can get ahead. You have a reason for doing things, and you understand that you probably have a different way of doing things that is like for yourself better, and you have to learn how to express that in the best way you can. And I think that a lot of that is uh, you have, when you develop this, you can begin instilling that into other people. And when other people realize when you're different. Like, my employees know I'm not the normal boss. It's just not. It's just true. I have their back all the time. I'm blunt with them. I let them know when things need to be improved. They know that anything I ask them to do, I can do myself. They know I'm always improving in the background because they see it in the foreground. Um, and that's the truth. Is like, I'm the best I can be in any industry I put myself into for that time period, and I'm always looking to improve. And anybody can do that. So, and how you do that is you teach other people how to improve. Once your foundation is there, it's there. Like, you can't really lose it, is what I've realized. So yeah, maybe you can deactivate it for some period of time, but at some point it's always going to be there to reactivate. And when you bring that to light, other people will be inspired to be better. That's usually true. I've seen guys who have seen me at work. They've changed their demeanor because they've seen what I'm capable of. And I always tell them, try to compete with me. Like I dare anyone to, because you would have to work very hard to get where I am in my life, to have the confidence that I have, to be honest with you. And I want to challenge you to do that, because, the fact is I have a team who works for me. The fact is I can come on YouTube whenever I want. The fact is my son is probably a prodigy, because I've taken the steps I needed to be able to have the time in my life to make sure all of these things are happening. And I want more, to be honest with you. I'm not going to lie. Like, I want to raise myself up higher, and that's what I think everybody should be doing, and we shouldn't be scared to say it. We should be able to do whatever we have to do it, and that's what I'm doing. Anyways, if anyone has any questions, I'm willing to answer them. If not, I'm probably just ending the stream right now because this is day 2. I'll be here 30 days. You guys can count on it. And really, I just want to work on right now, I guess it's like I'm kind of working on my stream of consciousness. How do I put my thoughts together without getting lost and things like that? And I'm going to be the best at that probably by the end of this 30 days. And whatever you are working on, just start working to be the best. Once you become the best, start instilling that into other people. So that way, the world can continue to be productive in a positive way. When people self-actualize, it happens in a positive way. And that's all I really have for you guys. Hope you guys like it.